January meeting of the Commission. And I was going to say, do we have all of our counselors here? I know that Commissioner Conte is excused. He's had some pipe problems, like so many other people. And so I see we have Commissioner Berry and Commissioner Fowler and myself and Commissioner Beckstead here yet? Okay, no, okay, why don't we just start? Well, can't do any. Do we have a quorum? We've got 3 of us, 3 out of 5, yes.
You do have a quorum and he should be on. A lot of people have been having internet problems, so I'll send him a text.
Okay, thank you. So the first order of business is approving the November meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to accept the November minutes?
Chair, there is a correction that we just realized thanks to our astute team that needs to be corrected. May I go ahead and read that off to you? At the very bottom of the agenda, the one that was sent out, the very last one, when we were urgently trying to tell everyone we weren't having an in-person meeting, all the others are correct, but that one misstates the information about the executive summary or executive session. It should
and that is that in this current the January agenda, or yes, in the November meeting?
It's the January agenda.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay,
and again,
so let's deal with that before we deal with them.
Right, it was corrected, and it was correct in all but the very last one that was sent out. It should read, at any time during public session, the commission may go into executive session to consider information or records exempt from disclosure pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub F, ORS 192.345 sub 2 OAR 462-220-0070 regarding trade secrets and or ORS 192.660-2F and ORS 192.3559 to consult with counsel concerning written legal advice and or ORS 192.660-2H to discuss legal rights and duties regarding current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. The commission may also elect to deliberate on pending contested cases pursuant to ORS 192.690.1. Additional items may be placed on the agenda after the general mailing of the agenda. Calls may be made to the commission office of the week of the meeting to inquire about additions.
Okay. That's it. Thank you. And so that has been corrected on a newer agenda?
That's the agenda that should go in the file, permanent one.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, with that, we go on to the November meeting minutes. Entertain a motion. Connie, what?
Chair, we still need to approve the meeting agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the mentioned changes.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Berry. All those in favor of approving the agenda, raise your hand.
Okay.
Aye, thank you. Okay, now we get to the November meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of November 2023? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fowler. Moves. And is there a second, Commissioner Berry?
Sorry, I will second the motion.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye, and I apologize that my video isn't working today, so I can't really raise my hand effectively.
That's fine. Then we will go through and we will have verbal votes then. Okay, thank you very much. The November meeting minutes are approved. Before we go to old business, first of all, welcome everybody. We're glad you're all here and hopefully you're safe and sound and you've got either got or had heat and still have heat, and your pipes are fine and your streets are, you don't live on a hill and everything else, because this is, those of us old Oregonians, this is like going back to the 70s and the ice storms that we used to have. So anyway, hope you're all safe. Okay, first item under old business, executive director's report. Commissioner or Director Wynn. You're on mute.
Muted, Connie.
Yeah, you're on mute.
Again. Thank you for keeping me straight. Let me try that again. Good afternoon, Chair Doherty, Vice Chair Barry, and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Connie Wynn, and I am the Executive Director of the Oregon Racing Commission. First, I want to acknowledge all the work that both Malia and Karen put into planning and then unplanning our in-person meeting this month. They both demonstrated excellent teamwork. Thank you very much. We've also noted that several people have had a difficult time opening the zip files we've been sending with all the materials. Going forward, we believe we will correct this by sending you a link that will go to our website with the materials. Last month, Micah Lloyd, Director of Mutuals, and I attended the ADW Roundtable in Tucson. We had a very good attendance and were asked to help the ADWs coordinate on creating a database for sharing information on problem gamblers. Micah is working on setting up our first meeting for this. We received some great kudos on our recent submission of our Information Technology Strategic Plan. I want to thank all of our staff that helped with that project. Speaking of which, I want to thank Micah Lloyd for his work on a new artificial intelligence policy for the Racing Commission. Unfortunately, before we included it in the packet, we checked with the state CIO and learned that the state is just beginning to work on their own policy and recommended we wait to ensure it aligns with theirs. So we are ahead of the curve. Finally, I want to share that there is some legislation that, if passed, could impact the Oregon Racing Commission. We'll have more to report on this next month. The big picture is on these is the opportunity for more funds to be kept and not sent to the general fund, which would be earmarked for safety, eliminating wagers on greyhounds, which would provide a significant blow to the off-track betting locations and thereby the commercial track, and could cause some of our ADWs to depart. In addition, legislation has been written that would require some additional reporting, the ability to fine ADWs that are operating illegal in the state, an increase in the maximum fines we are able to charge. That concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions of Director Wynn? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much. And a busy month. Next thing we have on the agenda is Medication and Safety Committee report. Commissioner Barry.
Thank you, Chair Doherty. Honorable Chair Doherty, Commissioners, Director Wynn, staff, and stakeholders. The following is my report on the progress of the Oregon Racing Commission Medication and Safety Committee. The committee has met twice since the last Oregon Racing Commission meeting. The discussion has gone essentially this way. Members of the committee and stakeholders from the public have discussed a number of safety initiatives and potential mitigation strategies. The consensus among participants in the conversation seems to be that while in principle it is agreed that every precaution that is reasonable and financially viable should be implemented, cost and the state of knowledge in the industry are confounding factors. I believe all parties involved have made a good faith effort to draft rules that will increase athlete safety. I also think it's clear from the discussion that taking all reasonable steps to promote safety and welfare of all our athletes is critical to the ORC's ability to fulfill its mission to regulate and facilitate all aspects of the parimutuel industry in the state of Oregon for the benefit of the citizenry, the licensees, the participants, and the economy. It appears that stakeholders are in general agreement that the less medical intervention athletes undergo prior to a race, the better. In practice, I'm hopeful that we'll have productive conversations about those details in committee meetings to come. Recommendations based on the committee's discussion, which included input from both committee members and industry stakeholders. Our committee has generated draft rules, which we hope will increase safety for athletes in the 2024 racing season. Those draft rules are in your packets. It is our hope It is our committee's hope to put those rules up for a vote at this meeting. Plans in the coming year. My plan as chair of the Medication Safety Committee is to explore more additional regulatory changes to further increase safety in Oregon racing to a degree that will be in keeping with the values of the bulk of Oregonians. I have some ideas already. The committee will also welcome ideas and recommendations from stakeholders. We must preserve thrilling horse racing for the well-being of the state of Oregon, and we must ensure safe racing for the state of Oregon. From my perspective, the only way forward is for the great state of Oregon to become the international gold standard for fun and safety in horse racing. Thank you for your time and attention. I welcome questions from the commission.
Okay, thank you very much. Going over the report, it is very it deals with many of the issues that we've talked about. We appreciate it. Are there any questions of Commissioner Berry? Okay, if not, do we need to accept this report, or just it was just for information? Okay, thank you very much. Next week, I don't have any other old business on here or so we will move to new business. And the first thing on there is the county fair meeting assignments.
For the record,
this was in the packet, the dates were sent out.
For the record, this is Connie Nguyen again, Executive Director. And again, as mentioned, you should all have the packet with the dates on there. The intent isn't for you to go for the entire meet, but to go for at least one day of racing. I will let the chair will take your requests and decide who goes where based on what you say today. And we can't have more than one person at a meeting as long as they're there at separate dates. We do want to make sure that every meet is covered. It's very important to our licensees and our stakeholders and industry partners that they see us out there and they want to have a chance to get to know you all. And plus, I think you'll have a lot of fun at all of these fairs. Before we go on to do that, though, I do want to address one other thing with assignments and schedules, and that is the fact that we did not have an in-person meeting in January as planned. Maybe it was a poor idea for me to pick January for the month for us to get together. With that said, I'm going to recommend that going forward, we consider meeting in April starting this year. And instead of meeting in June or July at the track, that we meet in September, which is actually better, I believe, for the track as well, our commercial track, because that's when they'll be running. Otherwise, we'd be going to a fair meet. So my recommendation to you is, and I believe that we should vote on this, is that we have an in-person meeting in April and in September, or you talk about it and decide what you want to do. And then we'll put together the calendar with that and which fair meets each of you are going to and send that to you after this meeting.
Okay, are there any questions of Commissioner or Director Nguyen on this?
You keep trying
on
to
the dates like and what it is to meet in person on April and September. Okay, no question. I'd like to entertain a motion that we have in-person meetings in April and September for our calendar this year.
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Beckstead moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Also,
Okay, Commissioner Fowler beat you to the punch. Okay, so with that, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
aye.
Or your hand or both.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Beckstead is an aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will be meeting in person in April and September. Okay, back to the fair meets. With this, and commissioners, do you have any questions about, because we've got so many new commissioners, as to what our responsibilities are, because they've got the fair meets in Union and Tillamook and Grants Pass and Prineville?
That's correct.
Yeah, and those are the four. And so usually what we do is we go, because I went to the Tillamook one last year, and we just go for the day and we meet with the athletes. The horses don't talk very much, but the jockeys do. And so we talk to we see where the meets are. What I thought was most impressive was you think that they just get on the horses and run. You don't realize how much is done behind the scenes for every single race, whether it is behind the scenes with the veterinarians and the stewards, but also behind the scenes for all of the people that run all of the totes and everything else. It is incredible what goes into just even one race. So I think what we'll do is, I don't know if you want to say now which race you'd like to go to, or whether you'd like to look at your calendars and by Monday, email Director Wynn and let her know which race you would like to go to. Okay.
There's one other thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Chair, I just wanted to bring up one additional thing to consider for some of you. This may or may not make a difference. Of course, we're going to pay for your travel to get there at the government rate, just like we would out here. There is one set of races, which is night racing. If you're not a night person, you might not want to go to Primeville. If you are, it's probably some of the most exciting racing out there because they pack them in from places hundreds of miles away. So just something to consider.
Oh, great. Thank you. So if you know where you want to go, you can tell us right now. If not, please email by Monday, and so we can get everybody on the calendar. Do we have any questions, commissioners? Okay, apparently not. So Monday is the deadline to let us know which fair. I mean, right now I will say I'll be at the Tillamook Fair. I'm not quite sure which day though. Okay. Okay, the next thing we have on the agenda is policy and budget. Is Tamara here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you very much. Because what we're going to do is go through and talk about policy and budget, and whether we need to take any action on this. Okay, so you can go. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize for interrupting. Chair Doherty, members of the commission, for the record, I'm Tamara Brickman with the DAS Chief Financial Office. I'm the budget and policy analyst assigned to the Oregon Racing Commission. And probably Director Wynn and Karen have seen this presentation or portions of it, but it's just going to give you a brief overview of the 25-27 budget process development because we're already there. Yep, I know that sounds kind of strange, but we are already beginning the process to develop the 2025-27 biennium's budget. So I'm going to share my screen with you because I have a presentation and hopefully it works. I have, oh, nope, I guess it's just host disabled participant screen sharing. Is it possible to be allowed to share my screen?
Malia, do you know how to fix that?
If you don't, just no worries.
If you put Tamara down as a host,
but I can probably add her as a co-host. So give me 1 second. So I'm going to assign you as a co-host. And you should be able to screen share now.
Okay. Let me try it. Oh, and just a little bit before I do that, just a little bit of background about me, just so you know who I am. I am a very proud native Eastern Oregonian. I was born and raised in La Grande, and have graduated from law school at the University of Oregon in '98, and have been with DAS Chief Financial Office for, I hate to say it, 16 years. But before that, I did legislative relations for state agencies, and then also worked for a former state senator and for a former United States congressman. So I have a lot of legislative and policy background experience. Now I will share my screen, assuming I can do that. Do you all see the PowerPoint?
No.
Oh, not yet. I hit share.
There we go.
Okay, let me, well, let's see. I need to. Okay, so this is just a quick overview of the budget process for the commission. Just some general reminders about the process, because the process is somewhat new this year. Governor Kotek has made some changes to how she would like to see agency request budgets developed for from how they've been developed in the past, which is the agencies just kind of have worked on their own, developed their agency request budget, turned it in, and then we as analysts get it and take a look at it, and we do an analyst recommended budget. That's not going to be the process this to go around. The governor really wants to be, and that wants our policy advisors and the chief financial office involved very early from the get-go to have a unified governor's budget at the end. And so Monday is the first deadline for agencies. And the one thing that we're really trying to maintain is that at this point, it's really an executive branch process. And so the decisions made during this process are within the executive branch, including obviously commissions and appointed commissioner members. And we would ask that the conversation until decisions are made and finalized just remain with the governor's office, our office, and within inside of your agency, and that the governor will be working, the governor's office and CFO will be working on a budget communications plan to be coordinated across the entire executive branch. And so that will be a continuing topic of conversation throughout the rest of the process. So just so you know, phase one starts January 22nd, Monday. All agencies have been asked to submit their proposed or what they think that they're going to propose for legislative concepts, that's what LC stands for, and policy package information to their governor's office and to our office. And they've been given some spreadsheets. There's some technical stuff on here you don't probably really care about. It's just a high level summary at this point. And there's directions to the agencies on how and where to submit it. And then CFO's office and the governor's office will meet, policy advisors and the CFO offices, analysts will meet, and agencies will receive feedback by February 2nd that reflects conversations between the governor's office, the chief financial office, and maybe involving some conversations also with the agency during that time. March is when we begin really in earnest with budget development. There will be a budget development kickoff meeting, a budget kickoff meeting in which the budget instructions go out to the agencies. And at that point, there will be some guidance from the governor's office on what her budget priorities are. And then there'll be a release of the actual, what we call budget instructions, which I've already said, have the actual detailed process and dates for submittal requests for not only budget, but also for legislative concepts. We'll begin developing the CSL, which stands for current service level. And if you have questions throughout this and while I'm presenting, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. I'm happy to explain things. It basically will be following most of the regular development timelines once we get into the actual development process. And so a key date for this agency will be that final information on legislative concepts, LCs, that's what that stands for, and policy packages will be to the governor's office and the CFO by the 30th of April. In May, we'll continue working on developing the current service level and then what we call policy packages, which become part of the agency request budget. On May 31st, the Racing Commission is what's known as an early submittal agency. So they will have to have all position related information submitted to our office on their current service level by May 31st, as well as also any non-position related current service level package information. And that's where they are allowed to put in their inflation and potential exceptions to certain inflationary requests if you're seeing extraordinary inflation in certain areas. But that will all be due by the 31st for the Racing Commission. And then in June, we'll finalize any outstanding current service level decisions and continue to work on package development. Position related information for any packages that the Racing Commission proposes, if they involve having the addition of any positions to the agency, that information is due into the system that we call ORPICS, which stands for Oregon Position Inventory Control System. that's due to us by the 28th. And then also, quite frankly, the rest of the information, policy option package information is due on the same date, which would involve any other expenditures besides personal services. On the 28th of June, we'll submit legislative concepts that agencies have received approval to the governor's office to submit to Legislative Council. In July, that is when the Racing Commission should begin finalizing their agency request budget narrative. And then key dates beyond at the end of July are a deadline to finalize any placeholder language that the agency may have with legislative concepts. And then also they have to submit the agency request budget narrative, which then becomes a public document as soon as it's published. In September and October, we'll continue discussions with respect to budgets. We won't be doing the standard process, which usually, I don't know if any of you are real familiar with the standard process, where I would have taken an initial stab and done an analyst recommended budget. Instead of doing that, we'll be working collaboratively with the agency all throughout this timeline to put together budget memos for the governor's office with respect to advice and recommendations on policy packages. And then on October 25th, legislative concepts will be returned to the agency from the Legislative Council office for final review. In November and December, that's when we really have a lot of heavy work because the governor has to publish her governor's recommended budget by the 1st of December. And so the 13th of November will be a deadline for any legislative concept packages or packets to come to the Department of Administrative Services, to our office. And then again on the 1st of December, the governor will release her recommended budget. And then on the 13th of December, it's the bill filing deadline for any legislative concepts approved by the governor's office for agencies to move forward to have filed with the Legislative Council. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any more explanation on the process. So I'm going to try and see if I can stop sharing my screen. I'm not quite sure how to do that. Let's see.
Oh, thank you. Malia, can you help her on that one? Because you're sort of getting no help from me. I'm not the tech person, but
yeah, I can do that. Let me.
You can? Oh, here it is.
There we go.
I see. Thank you. I'm used to
Okay.
Teams and not Zoom, so.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Brickman? And you can, if you for raising, there is the raising the hand app on here, and it's under. I've got a different computer than everybody else, so it's usually down at the bottom. But if you want to raise your hand or speak, if you have any questions as to what the timelines are and this kind of thing for the 25-27 budget. Do we have any questions? I don't see any hands. Okay, thank you, because it does sound like it's a different process than we've had before. Maybe I can't tell whether it's a little more streamlined, but
It's
a little bit.
Chair Doherty, it's a bit more streamlined to ensure the governor's office and policy advisors have the ability to kind of review and move forward with things in agency request budgets, have more involvement in the governor's office and try and to do an approach more from a executive branch wide level approach, as opposed to having just every agency come in and submit what they want and then have the analysis after the fact. So a lot of the analysis will be taking place during the submittal of the proposals.
Okay, thank you. Do the proposals still go to the Ways and Means Committee?
If they become part of the governor's recommended budget, they do.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it, and I'm sure that they're going to be working on the budget quite diligently. Okay, the next thing on that we have on the agenda is the review of best practices form to prepare for the February meeting. Commissioner Beckstead?
Thank you. So this is what we, the best practices document that we discussed at our last meeting. And our objective is to, and help me out here, Connie, to make sure I'm putting this right, but we were going to discuss these items and then at this meeting and then work on adopting them at the next one, or are we going to adopt them today? I'm
Commissioner Beckstead, and I know that you've been like so many people, there's been a lot going on for you recently. What we had decided, so the way that this works is these, and since most of you are new, at the end of the year, the commission has to evaluate itself as well as we have to provide our own evaluation on key metrics that the commission has achieved. As part of that, the discussion today is looking at those questions, trying to decide if you have any questions about what those questions will be that you're being asked, how you might measure them, and then next month to come back as just a check-in and say, here's the areas where I think we need more work. What else can we do between now and the end of the year to increase performance in these areas?
And so today we're just basically adopting the those measures themselves.
We don't even have to adopt them. We're just discussing them.
Oh, okay. All right. So I guess I would ask the chair to see if there are any questions about that.
Okay, now hopefully you've had a chance to go through and do it, because a lot of this deals with kind of our own self-evaluation.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's very important, but at least for me, going over this, it seemed to be very very comprehensive. It covered not only how we kind of see ourselves as commissioners, but what the communication is and these kind of things between ourselves and the commission staff and the commission director. And so I think this is something that's very important, because it just adds to the effectiveness of the commission when these things are here. But are there any questions about any of the subject matters stuff that we have here?
And I would just add that I agree with you, Chair. I think that these are, especially in the interest of transparency and making sure that that we've got some sort of built-in internal accountability, so that people can see that that we're trying to be mindful of our performance and how we're doing the state's business. So I agree. I think these are great steps, and I didn't find any problems with any of them.
No, I didn't. It does. I mean, it covers really literally evaluating the director and having, whether we've been doing strategic policy development, fiscal oversight, all of those kind of things, board management. And I think that those categories covered pretty much the most important things about what an agency and a commission should have. So Commissioner Berry or Commissioner Fowler, any questions?
No, thank
None
you.
on my end.
Okay, good enough. Okay, so with this, I guess, Commissioner Beckstead, do we want to move on and vote on this and have it moved? Are we going to vote on it or just move it into?
I don't think we have to vote. I think next the point this month, as Connie was just saying, was to make sure that everyone saw what these measures are, so that we're all familiar with them. And then at our next meeting, then we will actually go through the steps of adopting those and implementing the sort of the tracking.
Okay, sounds good. We will do that. That will be one of the major agenda items that we have on our February meeting. Okay, thank you very much, committee, for putting this together and to going over it, because it is comprehensive and it does help with the effectiveness of the organization. So I appreciate that. Okay, the next thing we have is to review the Oregon Racing Commission retention schedules, and that was also in the board packet. Commissioner or Director Nguyen?
Chair Doherty and Commissioners, for the record, my name is Connie Nguyen. I am the Executive Director still. The retention policy, timely enough, they were doing this at the state level as well. So I worked with the state level on this. We actually increased some categories, and it was approved by the office that oversees this, which I can't think of at the particular moment for some reason. But it has been approved on their side. I just want to make sure that everybody else is on the same level and that you know exactly what we're doing for this. This is just a document on how long we have to keep these documents. So there were a few questions that we actually brought up to legal as well, just because they're very specific to our agency. Do you have any questions on it?
Any questions, any input? Okay. Again, we're doing our job and getting our papers all in order. Okay, do we need to act on this at all, or is this more just information?
Chair
Okay.
Doherty, I would think that we should adopt it.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to adopt the report on the retention schedule as printed.
I'll move to adopt the schedule.
Okay, Commissioner Fowler moves to adopt the retention schedule. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Barry seconds. Any other discussion? Okay, with that, those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion passes and the retention schedule is adopted. Okay, the next thing is the review of the air quality proposal.
And again, this is Connie Nguyen, the Director of the Racing Commission, Chair Doherty and Commissioners. I want to thank especially Rod Lowe, Randy, and several of the horsemen and the people on that side for helping us with this, and our own staff. This was a very collaborative effort to come up with a air quality policy. As many of you know, unfortunately, especially in Southern Oregon, because of the fires, air quality has become a huge issue. So we've come up with a collaborative way to determine what we need to do, when we need to do it, who needs to meet, and what steps will happen if there's an air quality concern that could impact the horses. So again, I want to thank especially Rod Lowe for the help on this. And I recommend, if you don't have any questions, that you go to approve it.
Okay, are there any questions about the air quality? It was a very good document. I think it really kind of got to what needs to happen to either run a race or have the races canceled. And that has been an issue in Southern Oregon. And unfortunately, we'll keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't continue, but it's something that is definitely issues. So are there any questions of Director Nguyen? Okay, if not, I again entertain a motion to accept the air quality proposal as printed.
I'll make a motion to accept the air quality proposal as printed.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Barry moves that we accept the air quality proposal as printed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Fowler seconds. With that, we've had some discussion. All those in favor, either raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Okay, the next thing we have is the discussion and possible adoption of 462-220-0080, which are deal with hub funds. So, Connie?
And Chair Doherty, this one, we had a hearing on this morning, and there's some requested changes. So I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Barry, who ran the hearing this morning. And thank you, Commissioner Barry.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Barry.
Hold on here. Let me get my note. see, I saved this in a file. Okay. So there was only one comment, and it was in favor of the overall process. It's just about wording. It refers to including all account information, and Randy Bodine requested that it say including all hub account information, just for specificity, which seems fine to me.
Okay. So, are there any other questions? Because it was, this information, the Hub Fund request was sent out. And I know that it's a lot of information and so on, a lot of homework that we commissioners have to do, but are there any questions about this Hub Fund request proposal? Okay, hearing none, I would like to propose a motion, have somebody propose a motion that we adopt the proposed rule filings of 462-220-0080, and whoever does that does not have to repeat the numbers. Yes.
Chair Doherty,
Commissioner,
before you do that, can you also include with the recommended change?
Oh, yes, and please, along with that, and include the recommended change that Commissioner Berry just discussed. Okay, do we have a motion? Commissioner Beckstead?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded that we adopt the proposed rule filings on the hub funds and included the change that was made earlier. Okay, any other questions? Okay, with that, if you, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye, okay, passes unanimously. I know it's against Robert's rules, but I don't say no just because everyone that's here is voted in the affirmative. Okay, the next thing is the discussion and possible approval to repeal OAR 462-001-0010. And I can't remember which one that is. So Director Nguyen, if you could please explain that.
Chair Doherty, this rule was what they call an IRS pickup. And the reason this rule existed is because up to, gosh, I guess it was almost a year now, there was an amount that went into our retirement account, and the commission matched that money and paid that money, so it didn't come out of our salary. Since that time, the state has changed the way that did that, and they gave everyone a pay raise up to that amount. So there's no reason for the commission to reimburse it, which they haven't been. We just need to get rid of the rule. It's just outdated.
Okay. Okay, so this is more of just technical updating different rules that we have. Okay. It was different when the salary did not compensate for the retirement contribution. Okay, are there any questions, commissioners? Okay, if not, I entertain a motion that we approve the repeal of OAR 462-001-0010, which deals with retirement reimbursement generally.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you. It's moved by Commissioner Beckstead. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Fowler. Okay, with no more discussion, all those in favor, please vote aye, either by hand or vocally.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we're going to a whole slew of a request that we start the rulemaking process for the following amendments. And what we'll be doing is we will be formally approving these to go through and they will eventually become amendments. And we've had this, the wording out for a while. And so Director Nguyen will go over each one of those. And a lot of these, some of them are just a couple of word changes, but it is to go through and deal with some of the issues that we've had in the past. So with that, Director Nguyen, the first one is starting gate.
Yes. And commissioners, the first one, again, it's starting gates. My team, I want to thank my team. They've done a tremendous amount of work to try to get these to you. Our goal was to get as many of these as we could for the January meeting, so we had plenty of time to inform the horsemen of any changes coming up well before the season starts. The first one is around the starting gate, and it basically assures additional training and safe and appropriate handling of horses. I have to tell you, every track's different, but this is 99%, 100%, pretty much every track already, but we wanted to put it into rule. There's also some limitations on how the horses are put into the starting gate. There's a technique that we've decided is prohibited, which is what they call a tail bar. That's where the problem is a horse can flip in a starting gate. So sometimes when we say flip, go up on its back, especially if they're a very, very young horse. So sometimes the starting gate crew will hold the tail to keep the horse safe. And in some jurisdictions, they actually wrap the tail as another mechanism, but we've decided that for us, that's not an appropriate technique to use. So that's the bill that we are recommending, the first one.
Okay, so this is a recommendation, so it's more as a safety issue.
This is
make it more-
safety, yes. Safety for, of course, the horses as well as the starting gate personnel. Gosh, I used to think the jockey was the only job that's dangerous until I saw the starting gate. That's a terrifying area at times.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none. Do we want these adopted separately, each one at one time? Each individually?
Chair Doherty, Kelly, our legal is on. Kelly, can we adopt all of these at the end, or all the ones that they are comfortable adopting at the end?
Hi there. Yes, for the record, this is Kelly Rout at DOJ. You could do a motion where you do them all at once, just as long as you identify them. For example, in the agenda, they are 12 items, 12A through G. You could identify them that way, or you could specifically state either. You could do them all at once. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think that's what we'll do, and any that are of an issue we'll pull out. Okay, the second one is deals with the plates amendment for horses.
Chair Doherty and commissioners, again, I want to thank my staff. One of the things that's unique about Oregon compared to a lot of places is we have a lot of quarter horses, and some rules that are in HISA or are used by other jurisdictions don't address the differences between quarter horses and thoroughbreds. So our steward went through a great deal of work to work with other jurisdictions, and frankly, we couldn't really find any that had a really good differentiation on those. So he came up with some good standards on that and was planning on actually sending them to ARCI for model rules.
And Director, could you explain what the plates are?
Sure, we're talking about horseshoes.
Okay.
And if they have a rim around them, and what the distance amount on that is. Now, I will say this morning, I was called by Randy Bodine, who had gotten some information from one of his horse people that there is a new standard that's just been provided to HISA, which looks like it's 99% the same as ours. But I would recommend in our medication meeting before we file this, that we go over the two and compare them, since it's today anyway. And if there's any minor tweaks, we go ahead and make those, but I'd still like to have permission from this group to file, because I don't see anything that would change much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Are there any questions about what any of this means?
Pardon?
Are there any questions on on this other than that.
Okay, I have a question from DHAS. Yes, I don't know who that, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, but if you unmute yourself and ask your question.
That's Leah.
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself.
Mic on.
There you
There
go.
we go. And please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Leah Nelson with the Oregon Quarter Horse Racing Association. And Dave wants to make a comment about the plates.
Well, Madam Chair,
Okay,
members
just
of the commission,
Identify
let me
yourself for the
scoot
record.
over. Chair Dave Nelson, I'm a member of the board of directors of the Oregon Quarter Horse Racing Association and a member of the American Quarter Horse Association Racing Committee and several other things, but nonetheless, we'd like to look just carefully at the plater rule. The ideas on racehorse shoes changes kind of like the weather, but it still is something I think that that there can be some minimum standards. However, I think you want to be careful in adopting a standard that is too exclusive and causes people to go elsewhere just because they can't comply with the regulations on the quality or the dimensions or the height. It's generally the height of the toe grabs on front and rears, and they all change and people change them all the time. So we just like to look at the flexibility of the rule to accommodate different track, different surfaces, different dimensions of shoes.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so this might be one that we might pull as opposed to voting, and we will deal with it at the February meeting. Okay, the third one is, I will not say all of the numbers, but it's the intra-articular injection amendment. And again, all of you received copies of this.
And Chair Doherty and Commissioners, Connie Nguyen, again for the record, Executive Director. This would prohibit on race day intra-articular injections for horses 14 days prior to race day and within 7 days prior to any timed and reported workout. This would go into an existing rule, but it's still it's still an amendment, but we did not address this in any prior rules.
Okay, and explain in more detail what an intra-articular injection is.
Dr. Everman, since you're the expert, would you like to discuss what that is? If you
And
so.
I'm just doing it because I don't know the information, so I don't know if other commissioners do. So,
well, articular is a
Thank you,
joint.
Doctor.
Articular is a joint. So intra-articular means making an injection directly into a joint. And the problem with this would be that either cortisone or a local anesthetic could be put directly in a joint that was painful for the horse and might not be detected on either blood or urine, because especially if it was done very near the race time, it may still be largely contained within the joint capsule and would not be available to be sampled elsewhere in the horse. So this is something that needs to be addressed in rules, and it would also put us in compliance with the HISA rules. Would be similar.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much for the explanation. Okay, anything else to add, Director? Okay, do we have any questions from the commissioners? Okay, so what this does, it seems that they were putting in the amendments to make sure that there's more safety for the horse athletes, correct? Okay,
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next one we have is the use of shock waves, the amendment on the use of shock waves.
Chair Doherty and Commissioners, for the record, this is Connie Nguyen, the Executive Director. Currently, we have that set as a minimum of 10 days for the treatment. for shockwave therapy or radio pulse wave therapy machines to be used. It has been recommended that we change that to 30 days, and that also brings us in compliance with HISA and some other jurisdictions. And Dr. Everman, would you like to explain exactly what, in professional terms, the shockwave and radio pulse wave are, what the differences are, and what they're used for?
Well, I think the most important issue for us in Oregon is that there are no approved machines or users of machines on any of the racetracks that are running in Oregon right now. So this would actually affect no one at this point in time. And it's a good time to put this in place because the shockwave machine puts ultrasonic sound waves into the tissue, and for a reason that is currently unknown, it produces a temporary anesthesia of the area. So in other words, for example, on a microfracture in a cannon bone, a shockwave therapy could be done on this and the horse would no longer feel pain from that area. It might get past a pre-race examination because the horse would not feel pain in that area. And most of this shockwave therapy is done off track, so we do not actually have jurisdiction over it. So while this rule is a good one to make this change, it may not be totally effective because most people that are doing this are going off track with the horse to have this procedure done.
Okay. But at least we're changing some of the timelines and that kind of thing to try to make it safer and more for investigation, that kind of thing.
Yes, if it's done 30 days out in advance, this would really come into play at the racetrack when our investigators license someone to use this type of machine at the racetrack. They would be informed of this recommendation or rule, actually, and they would not be able to enter the horse in a race. Also, the race office would be notified of this, and the horse would not be eligible to enter for 30 days after this treatment was done, at which point in time the anesthesia would be gone.
Okay. So another safety for the horse.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, commissioners, do you have any questions? Any comments?
I'd just like to say, I think we have issues with enforcement on a number of these things. And I think that'll be part of the discussion moving forward in the safety committee is, I think we can establish ideal standards for horsemanship in Oregon. Enforcement is going to be tricky. So I think having a culture that really recognizes having safe, quality, fair horse racing is in everyone's best interest in the long run, horsemen and everybody. But in terms of going out and catching people at it, I think we're pretty limited. Maybe somebody will have some really good ideas.
Okay, excellent recommendation. So this might be something that we'll be working on, is the enforcement of all these rules, because if somebody can, kind of break a rule because it's off, it's, someplace else. And so let's make sure that we do look at the enforcement issues on these also. Okay. Thank you very much for the explanation. The next one, this is number E, is prohibited substances amendment.
Chair Doherty, members of the commission, this is Connie Wynn, the Oregon Racing Commission Director. And there's several things that this is changing, and I'm going to give you the high end on it. There's a couple big issues here that we're working at. One of them is we call BUTE, but if you were to talk in human terms, it would be non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs. We have 3 that are approved for use in Oregon. And currently in our rule, we are limited to 24 hours. We have to give the medications cannot give the medications any sooner than 24 hours. Our recommendation is to change that to 48 hours and by doing this, we feel that this would reduce the chance to hide any information that might let a horse go and race that maybe has an injury that we wouldn't detect. That's the first part of this. The second part of this is there is some language about Lasix, which is a drug that's given for what they call bleeders. I don't know if all of you are aware of it, but some thoroughbreds and even some quarter horses can have some blood that comes up from their lungs from running. It's not uncommon. So this medication is meant to protect them on that. Currently, the rule states that the medication cannot be given less than 4 hours before the race. We're proposing that it's changed to 3 hours before the race. And number one, that's in compliance. That's not in compliance. It's in line with what Washington State is doing. They also have 3 hours beforehand. And based on the research that Dr. Everman has done, that's it's better for the horse that way anyway, as well as changing from 500 milligrams down to 250 milligrams as the max. Dr. Everman has stated that he doesn't believe anybody's going over that anyway, but that's where we would like to be. And again, that would bring us more in line with other jurisdictions in our area. And then the last thing that this does is we had certain standards for drugs for urine that weren't in our blood samples. And sometimes, you know, a horse just doesn't want to give us a urine sample. I don't know why. They just don't understand that. So we take blood samples. So some of this is just to clarify and clean that up. So we have those standards in there as well. And that is it. Are there any questions on that?
Okay. Any questions from commissioners or others? Commissioner Beckstead?
So just to be clear, Director, when these by changing the language to be 48 hours instead of 24, we're actually expanding sort of the threshold to protect horses from the dangers of what we consider to be like same-day race medications. Is that accurate?
Yes, if I'm understanding you right, yes. So instead of being able to take a lever, just using human terms, a or Adderall, the day before, we're saying it has to be 2 days before to make sure it's out of the horse's system. So we have a better chance of making sure that the horse is sound and can detect any injuries that might be hidden otherwise. Dr. Everman, do you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it correctly. The problem we have is we do pre-race examination on the morning of race day, which a lot of our races are in the late afternoon. So the butte, which 90+% of the horses in Oregon are running on phenylbutazone right now. And with a 24-hour rule, they're actually receiving this medication something like 18 hours or less before the pre-race examination. So a horse that without the butte might be lame is not lame when we do the pre-race examination. And if a horse is lame, it should not be racing. That's just the basic rule. Is common sense would tell you if the horse is lame without butte. Yes, Alice, go ahead.
Sorry, it won't let me raise my hand. I had to do it actually. I have a couple comments on this, and I agree with Tom. I think a lot of this. I'm sorry.
Please.
I'm sorry. This is Dr. Alice Lombard. I was a treating vet at Portland Meadows for about a decade, and I fill in on the fair meets as commission vet these days. So I've been around racing for a long time, even before I was a vet. So I sat on some of the advisory committees when we reviewed a lot of this 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm glad that we're coming back around to look at a lot of this. I do think a lot of this particular proposed amendment needs a lot of work before we go further with it. We need to address getting in line, not just with our neighboring states, but with the nation on a lot of this stuff. But we also have to recognize a lot of what the nation has been going with and going towards is a lot of this HISA. And HISA doesn't cover quarter horses, and we run a huge percentage of quarter horses here. Just like they did in Washington, they're running HISA rules for their thoroughbreds, but not for their quarter horses. And we need to address that in this. Also, I think we need to talk about the LASIX a little bit more as far as being in line with our neighboring states. And I mean, we run in a hot environment, but we're also in the Northwest. There's a lot of hot environments in the US where LASIX are allowed to give up to higher amounts, and keeping horses from bleeding is really important for their well-being. And then the other thing is there's no addressing of bisphosphonates in this. And I think we need to come back around and work on putting those in here. That's just another drug that's used in theory to help with bone development in different ways and different diseases, but it can also cause poor development in young horses. And most of our states have gone to regulating horses not being able to run if they've been given this drug because they have poor bone conformation because of it. So I think there's a lot of work to be done here, and I'm excited that we're doing it. I'm just not sure this is ready to move forward yet.
Okay, comments?
I just hope that Dr. Lombard will come and observe and comment at the medication safety committees. Like to hear
I'll
from
be there.
Good.
Okay, thank you. So this might not, I forgot what we're talking about, prohibited subject or substances or testing amendment. I forgot already. With testing amendment? Is that what we're talking
Prohibited substances.
Okay, the substances, that's what we're talking about. Okay. So maybe this is one that we'll pull out because there might be more discussion on it.
Madam Chair.
Yeah. Director Wynn and
No, I was gonna just
How about
point out
Director-
that, go ahead.
Whether it is efficacious or whether it is not. And it's still, as Dr. Alice said, quarter horse races have been exempted, quarter horses have been exempted from the HISA rules, which then prohibited LASIX in thoroughbreds. And it's much more important to understand thoroughly, I guess, and I don't know that anybody really does yet. There's the argument tends to be that LASIX causes the horse to lose weight during by urinating out a bunch of fluids, but it also is a protective drug as well that has been used. And I don't know that I've ever seen a quarter horse race that I could say that the outcome was affected by the use of LASIX. Just to advise you that the American Quarter Horse Association's policy has been to defend and to support the use of LASIX in quarter horse races.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion on the prohibited substance amendment? Okay. Oh, yeah, Commissioner Beckstead, and then Randy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, sort of reaffirm that for me, the bottom line on these rule changes is, are we making horse racing in Oregon for all horses, whether they're quarter horses or thoroughbreds, more safe for the horses, and so with the objective, of course, that we have as few as possible, if not zero, accidents, breakdowns, and fatalities. So that's really, I know generally about the physiological effects of things like of LASIX and phenylbutazone. But really the bottom line for me is going to be, are these rules making racing in Oregon safer for the horses and for the jockeys? So, I may not necessarily follow the minutia, the veterinary minutia, but that's really going to be sort of the bottom line for me is, are we making this safer for the animals and the jockeys? That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's pretty much, the view of all of us. So I appreciate that comment. Anything else? Because I think we'll be pulling this one off of the overall amendment to adopt. Okay, the next one we've got is the testing amendment. 46216000140.
Chair?
Yes, yes, Director
May I
Wynn.
make a recommendation? May I recommend that we, and perhaps that isn't enough either, but never mind. Let's just pull it. I just hate to not make progress. We'll pull it for now.
Well, I think what
Never
it
mind.
is, it'll be progress, but it's, I think, discussion between now and the February meeting, and then at the February meeting, we would go through and have it go through as to recommending to accept the amendments that will come through, because there might be another amendment or two that comes through with this. Okay.
May I ask, would the Horsemen's Associations prefer that we come to resolution on this today, or would you prefer we have more discussion? Do we want to postpone this? Because I want to give them time to be prepared.
Okay. So does anybody have?
I see,
answer?
I think Leah's trying to.
Oh, and Chair Doherty, I have a quick question, if I may. This is Kelly Rott from DOJ. I think I just want to make sure we were all clear. It sounds like these are rules that we are starting the process on. So
Correct.
they're not being adopted today. It's just
No,
all rolling. Okay.
correct. It is just the idea of the request to start the
Okay.
rulemaking process for the following amendments. Yes, and so it's a rule process. It's the idea of giving the commission and the staff and folks to go forward with them, not necessarily adopting these, but forward with them.
Okay, yeah, I want to make sure we're clear on the term. We'll still have rule hearings and all of that. So, okay, great.
Okay, so with that, I do have a question on the ones that we were thinking of, not including in total. Do we want those all included since we want to go through and maybe continue to discuss all of them?
Oh, is that a question for me or?
For both you and Director Wynn.
Chair Doherty, I would recommend that we do. So for example, if we come to resolution in the medication meeting on one of these, we can at least start the process and then come back to you and talk about the changes. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. We have to have, for anything like these where it's going to impact the horsemen, we'll have to have hearings and other meetings to ensure that everybody has given us all of their concerns.
And so just for clarification, this is more to move these forward so we can continue with the rulemaking process to come to some conclusion. Okay. Okay,
yeah, this is this is the commissioner's blessing to basically, get started on these. So it really, from a legal perspective, it doesn't matter if you say yes or no. If you say yes, then you have more runway to work on them. Yeah. And I think what it is we make a movement to request that we start the rulemaking process. It gives a little more impetus. So, okay. So we still have two more to go to the testing amendment. What is that?
Chair Doherty, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Connie Wynn. I'm the executive director. 90% of this are changes that our former council had come up with and recommended that we do. There's a couple things in here that really didn't make any sense that were removed by our veterinarian because they were either conflicting or not logical. But again, the majority of them are just either grammatical changes or some type of legal change. Tom, Dr. Everman, do you have any specific things you would like to discuss on this one?
No, I think that we don't have any major changes that are occurring here. It's just, as you said, there are a couple of things that were in there that should not have been. One of them might be the Lasix being given to obtain a urine sample. I talked to Truesdale Laboratory, our former laboratory, about that, and they said they never look at the syringe. This is something that's in our rule. It should just be abandoned.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on testing amendment? Okay, so the last one in this is geolocation amendment.
Chair Doherty, members of the commission, this is an easy one. This is our ADW rule. We had, when we first started with the advanced deposit wagering companies, the online companies, we didn't have things like geolocation. We could only verify their address by proving that they lived there and had residency, which there's a number of ways to do. But now that we have the geolocation, we would like to just include that that's another mechanism that they can use to determine if it's legal for them to wager there.
So kind of updated with technology.
Exactly.
Okay, so for item 12 on the agenda, which is request to start rulemaking process for the following amendments. I think what I'd like to entertain a motion that we give approval to begin the rulemaking process, or continue to start the rulemaking process for all of these amendments.
I make that motion.
Okay, Commissioner Beckstead makes a motion that we start the rulemaking process for the following amendments, and they're listed in here from A to G. Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Fowler. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you for the work, and as I say, it looks like all of these amendments are going through to try to make the make it safer for all involved in the races. Okay, next one, number 13, discuss experts' participation in the advisory committees and the review charters. And we talked about this before, to add industry experts on different committees and that kind of thing. And so we're just kind of opening it up for discussion with the commissioners as to whether we think this is a good idea and something that we should push forward. So it's something I don't think it ever hurts to have industry experts, because at least I'm one that knows, I'm not even close to an industry expert and would like to have that kind of input. So any other, Commissioner Beckstead?
So did you say that did you say that these experts would serve in an advisory capacity, or would they be serving in a voting capacity?
I think the purpose was to be in an advisory capacity.
Yeah, and I can just say I do not have any problem whatsoever with having people from the industry that obviously they are an important part of the conversation. So I would love to have their input. So I support this concept.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, so with that, I think this is something that we would just, I don't know if we have a committee to put together or some sort of a protocol or whatever to see if we can add these to our committee structure. Is that kind of what the idea is, Director Nguyen?
Chair Doherty, members of the commission, for the record, my name is Connie Nguyen, the Executive Director of the Racing Commission. What my plan is to work with the appropriate members of my team to try to come up with recommendations, and then we will work with whoever the chair of the committee is and provide that information and see if they like our recommendations or if they have other ideas on what kind of expertise they're looking for. Obviously, if any of you have a certain type of expertise you would like to see on your committee, we would really recommend that you give us that information in advance so we can consider that. You guys may know people that we don't know, and there may be other industry people that can help us out with that. But we'll go to whoever we need to try to get that information. For example,
Okay,
yeah.
Go ahead.
That's it.
Go ahead. For example.
Yeah, for example, there may be some expertise out there, but they're not available during the week, and the commissioners would have to decide if having a meeting on the weekend would make sense to have the expertise on there, or if they'd rather go with somebody else who's available when they are.
Okay. And so this is just kind of the beginnings of us coming up with a process to see if this is something that will work for the committees. Okay. Any other comments by the commissioners? Okay, thank you very much. Next one, discuss the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act. Director Nguyen?
Yes, Commissioner Doherty, Chair Doherty, and Commissioners, again, this is Connie Nguyen. This was brought on by Commissioner Begstead. He had asked that we have this as an agenda item to talk about HISA. So I will turn it over to him for his thoughts on it. And then I can share any information about costs or what would be necessary, because I think most of you know that there are tremendous costs associated with it.
Okay, thank you very much. If I would have looked at my notes, I would have said, Commissioner Begstead, could you talk about this? But
Well,
anyway, so Commissioner Begstead.
Thank you, Chair. And by way of background, in over the past several years, I've actively worked on the Horse Racing Integrity and Safety Act. I worked in my former capacity with my former employer for the passage of that law, and of course the rollout has been, rocky at best. Several states filed lawsuits. And there's all sorts of controversy around it. And I certainly want to hear from Director Nguyen on the cost. And I guess what it comes down to for me is, if there are substantive and valid reasons for Oregon not to join HISA, and I'm not convinced that that is the case, but if there are, I still would like to see us moving in the direction that I think HISA was intended to move. And as I said earlier, with the objective of making horse racing safe for the athletes. So, we are going through a process of adopting rules that I think are generally in alignment with HISA. And so, that really to me is the bottom line. I'm taking a pragmatic view of this, in that I don't want to insist that we adopt HISA, just for the sake of adopting HISA, but I certainly want to, I want to, as a state, I want us, and as a commission, I want us to really embrace sort of the ideas and the values behind HISA. So that's why I felt like it was important for us to talk about.
Okay, thank you. Because it seems like we're moving in that direction, but not necessarily this. Commissioner Nguyen, I know that there are some concerns. Like, for example, what are some of the things that could possibly hold us back?
Well, let me talk to a few of them. One of the reasons why HISA is so important for so many tracks, and they have gone that way, is because you are not allowed to simulcast, which means to sell your signal outside. So, for example, the Grants Pass racetrack, if we're not HISA, they're not allowed to send that signal through ADWs to other states. So they can't get those wagers in. So a lot of states have already adopted HISA, partly because of that reason. Unfortunately, because Grants Pass is a smaller track, and Rod, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on this, right now, even without HISA, he would lose money to do that. So he can't, because they have a monopoly on the people who send that signal out. They're called Roberts. And the amount of money that Roberts charges has made it, at this point, unless they grow horse racing, not financially necessary. So the actual accreditation for, the carrot that they put in front of you to have that isn't necessary. The other problem is that because there have been so many lawsuits and the government didn't provide any funding for this whatsoever, that the costs are estimated, and it changes all the time, based on what it is, but it's about 500,000 a year. So that's $1 million in a biennium that we would have to spend to have this. And we would still be doing a lot of the same work. I would rather see us, and this is just my personal opinion, and I want to hear everybody's, you know, I'm the director. I work at the will of you and the governor. I would rather see us take that money and support our fair meets and our jockey insurance and put more money into safety than paying for them and then not having any money for safety because we've spent it all on that area. So that's my only concern. If we had the money, I think it'd be great. The other problem is we have a ton of quarter horses and they don't even fall under HISA, and some of those rules are going to be different for quarter horses.
Chair Doherty, may I be recognized?
Yes, please, Commissioner Barry.
I just wanted to say, I haven't heard anybody say that they were opposed to implementing any evidence-based practices. So whether we join HISA or not, my impression is that all the stakeholders want to take all reasonable precautions to keep athletes safe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of my take, is that, you know, we take some of the things that they have and go forward. Sir, I can't remember your name. It just says owner.
Rod Lowe. This is Rod Lowe.
Yeah,
with,
thank you. Hi, Rob Lowe.
So, you know, my opinion is the same as Commissioner Barry. We are going towards that whole HISA. That's what we're doing right now. That's the rulemaking. We're looking at changing different things without the cost of HISA. And HISA, I think, was set up, in my opinion, because there was not very good regulatory agencies out there for different tracks. I feel like our commission has had a real good handle on that, and going through things today can tell you again, Oregon has always been proactive in trying to have the safest environment for the horses. And I feel like HISA was put into effect because there were states that didn't do that. And I think without incurring the cost, I think we can get there for the most part and not have to do HISA. With HISA, because we do run a mixed breed race, a lot of these thoroughbred tracks, all of HISA now comes in and regulates those thoroughbred tracks. Quarter horses are not part of that. So any mixed breed tracks, you still have to create your own staffing for those other breeds, whether it's paints, thoroughbreds, harness horses, mules, Arabians. You still have to have your staff. So on top of paying HISA, you still have to keep your own staffing in order to regulate those other breeds. And so you're doubling what your cost is in the state. So in my opinion, if we can just regulate ourselves at this point, I'm not saying we'll never get there, but at this point, if we can regulate ourselves, what Connie said earlier, it's going to be better for our industry. And especially what's coming down from some of the bills that looks like might go into this next session. If some of those bills go through, we are really going to be hurting financially as a commission, as a racing organizations, and taking HISA to it and adding that to that. Basically, we're going to break the industry, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I would say my hope is that the savings that we might incur would go to promoting us being even safer than HISA. I mean, I really think we can exceed other jurisdictions. We don't need, with or without them, I think we need to be the very safest we can possibly be. You can't make running horses fast perfectly safe. We need to be the standard.
Commissioner Berry, thank you very much for your input. And I think that, like I said earlier, that seems to be the direction of the Racing Commission, is to make sure things are as safe as possible. So anyone, any other comments, questions, discussion?
Madam Chair, I hate to
Yes.
be bugging and
I-
all the time. Dave Nelson.
Can I identify yourself?
Yes, Dave Nelson, Oregon Corridors Racing Association. I think the one thing, and I talked to some people from California, I've been on the California board for several years, that what they say is that if Oregon adopts HISA as it is, then what you're going to do is you're going to lose the horsemen, just simply because they can't afford what we pay in California. And they can pay that in California because they have $13,000 allowance races as opposed to $5,000 allowance races. So the owners and the trainers just simply can't afford all of the examinations and the pre-examinations and the other testing that goes along with complete HISA foundation. So anyway, I would totally support Rod Lowe's comments that, and for you to think about it, is you can adopt the rules down to the point where the horsemen leave or quit or whatever it may be, just stop racing, and that's the end of it. So it's a balancing act. There has to be enough financial incentive to at least pay the bills. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other quick discussion?
Hey, if I could just wrap up, I just want to thank all of you for this conversation. You know, I came into this role fired up on HISA. I think that I have gained more of a well-rounded understanding of both HISA, the problems with HISA, and sort of the good and the bad. So I appreciate this thoughtful conversation, and I like the idea of Oregon becoming, maybe setting some new standards that are even better than what is in HISA. And I also understand that if there are costs, and by the way, Director Wynn, I would be very interested to see whatever you've got that shows what those costs would be for Oregon, just so that I have it for my own benefit. But thank you for this conversation, and I certainly respect the remarks, and looking forward to continuing the conversation.
No, thank you very much, because I think that is our goal, is to get better than what HISA has. Okay, with that, the next item on our just now, it says discuss changes in the public records law, and this is Kelly's doing this. Do we go into executive session for this, or is she going to make some sort of public statements and we go into executive session? I'm not quite sure of the format.
Yes, Chair Doherty, I have a summary that is just explaining the changes that can be done in open session, and then if there were any questions or anything that we need to dive in deeper, and you wanted to go into executive session, we could do that. You may not need it, so it'll be up to you, but we wanted to make sure we put it on the agenda.
Okay, we've got on the agenda, and you don't need it. So I'm turning the presentation over to you.
Great, thank you. So, good afternoon, Chair Doherty and members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kelly Rout, Assistant Attorney General with the Oregon Department of Justice, and Executive Director Wynn had asked me to provide a summary of changes to the public meetings law. There were quite a few in 2023 during the legislative session, so I wanted to highlight those changes for you. So there were actually 4 bills that were passed during the 23 legislative session. And all of the bills are now operative. I will be providing the effective date of them, but they are all operative now that we're in 2024. So the first bill was House Bill 2806, effective July 13th of 2023. And the purpose of this bill was to add 2 new grounds for a board to conduct an executive session. There's a number of ways that a board can conduct an executive session, and this adds 2 more. The first one is to consider matters relating to the safety of the governing body and of the public body staff and volunteers and the security of public body facilities and meeting spaces. And the second ground was to consider matters relating to cybersecurity infrastructure and responses to cybersecurity and threats. So essentially, the new executive session bases are safety and cybersecurity. The second bill change was Senate Bill 11, effective January 1, 2024. And I think this one just codifies into law what many agencies were already doing, which is when meeting through telephone or other electronic means, the board must record the meeting and promptly publish the recorded meeting on a publicly accessible website or hosting service. The public must be able to view the meeting recording without charge if it was recorded using video conferencing, or they can listen without charge if the meeting was held with teleconferencing technology and there was no video option.
Okay.
Oh, yes. The third change, Senate Bill 207, effective also January 1st, 2024. This authorized the Oregon Government Ethics Commission to open an investigation of an executive session violation on their own motion without receiving a complaint when it has reason to believe there has been a violation. In the past, I believe they had to act on a complaint, and now they can, if they, they can do that on their own. And then the final bill, House Bill 2805, which was effective September 24th, 2023, had the most changes. So I saved that one for last. I did quite a few things. So the first was that it updated some definitions related to meetings, and it clarifies what type of activities are not covered by the public meetings law. So regarding definitions, the public meetings law already defines the term meeting, but that definition actually uses the word convening. And so, as in the convening of a governing body, which is actually what you are doing today. And House Bill 2805 defines convening to mean gathering in a physical location, or using electronic, video, or telephonic technology to communicate contemporaneously among participants, using serial electronic written communication among participants, or using an intermediary to communicate among participants. It also defines the term deliberation to mean discussion or communication that is part of a decision-making process. And then regarding activities that are not covered by the public meetings law, there are actually certain types of activities that do not fall under what is a meeting under the public meetings law. And activities that have been added to those statutes are communications between or among members of a governing body that are purely factual or educational in nature, and that convey no deliberation or decision on any matter that reasonably might become before the governing body. Communications that are not related to any matter that at any time could reasonably be foreseen to come before the governing body for deliberation or decision. Or communication that is non-substantive in nature, such as communication related to scheduling, leaves of absence, or similar matters. So the theme of all of those things, those communications would not be considered meetings because they are just not things that the governing body would be making substantive decisions on. All right.
Okay.
And then we move on to the other things that this bill does. It moves into more of the enforcement process. Previously, the public meetings law didn't have a lot of enforcement mechanisms. So the bill does create a grievance process for the public, where the public could file a grievance first with the public body if the member of the public believes that the public body has committed a public meeting violation. And then if the member of the public was not satisfied with how the public body handled that grievance, then the member of the public could file a complaint with the Government Ethics Commission. The bill also authorizes sanction authority for the Government Ethics Commission for any violation of the public meetings law. Prior to this legislative change, the Ethics Commission could only sanction for violations of the executive session. So now there could be sanctions for any violation of the public meetings law And a civil penalty imposed on a member of a governing body is the personal liability of that member and may not be paid by the governing body or the public body. And finally, the bill provides for training opportunities to be offered by the Government Ethics Commission, and that will be something that they will put together and offer to public bodies. And that is my presentation. So if there are any questions, you want to dive in deeper, we can go into executive session, or you can think about it. And if you have questions in the future, you can reach out to me or reach out to Connie.
Great. And one thing now, I can't, with all of the materials that we got for today, was a summary of this in the materials that were sent to us?
No,
okay.
No.
And so, because what I was going to say, oh, okay. Then maybe my request would be
what
that
I gave to you, I would be happy to provide this to you because it's public. I gave it to you. Yes. Okay, so it didn't make it into the packet, so I could send it to Connie or the ORC staff and get that to you, so you have it in writing. Because it was a lot of information orally.
Right. And so I think what it is just the idea that if a commissioner or a staff member or whatever wants to know what it is, we can do that, because I know that some of the legislation that went through really did add to the effectiveness of a public meetings law. And so I think some of the changes are good. Some of them were a little, kind of got in minutia, but that was good. So are there any questions of Kelly about the public meetings law? I mean, we're kind of pretty open and anyway, so we do that. Any questions? Okay, with that, because we had on the agenda possibly of going into an executive session, I think if we had any questions of Kelly that were more, executive session type, but it doesn't appear that we do. So I think we'll just, if this is okay, we'll just move on with the agenda. Is that okay? I don't hear anything. Okay, so the next thing was a public comment. I have a lot of people on the call, and by the way, thank you very much. It's it's nice to meet in person, but with the weather the way it is, and some of you having to travel so far, it's nice that we at least were able to get so many people on the call. So we just have it open to public comment. Do we have any? I don't see any. Okay, and we have no contested cases. And so the next meeting we have is February 15th at 1:30, and that is going to be a Zoom. Because as they said, we need to vote that in April and September, those would be our in-person meetings. So is there anything else for the good of the order? Yes, Director Nguyen.
Chair Doherty, I would like to remind everyone that directly following this is a medication meeting, and I recommend that we have a 10-minute recess first, and then we can pick up there for the medication group.
Okay, great. And so I did that. I said after the next meeting, my last announcement is medication meeting will begin on this Zoom in 10 minutes. Okay, anything else? Well, thank you all very much for your input. It's been very, very good. A lot of good discussion. And it seems like we're all kind of on the same page of, let's make the industry as safe as we can for all involved. And that's whether it's putting the horses in the gates or riding them or training them or whatever. And that's the thing that's very important. So anyway, with that, you guys, everyone stay safe, warm, and we will see you all in February. Okay, thank you. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Okay, anything else? That's it. See y'all later. Okay, in 10 minutes, the medication committee meets.